CNN is reporting tonight that, quote, very likely, the Republicans will take control of the United States House of Representatives with up to 50 seats. That means that you will be the next Speaker of the House of Representatives.
It's a little bit of an unusual feeling. We're not ready to claim that yet. We want to see some votes out of the West Coast and get a better sense of what's going to happen in Washington State and California. But certainly the trend lines up to right now look like we're clearly going to have a majority. And Bernie, you know, we've talked many times over the years. I can tell you, it is a very sobering and I think a very humbling experience to recognize the potential responsibility for the first time in 40 years to serve as Speaker of the House from a Republican side, and to recognize that it's Speaker of the House, not Speaker of the Republican Party.
You said some very tart things about the Democrats in the run-up to this election night, indications that if you got into control, you would go after the Clintons, you'd go after the White House, the president, you'd order hearings. How much was bluster and how much was intent?
Well, let me say, first of all, I think that Jim Leach and Bill Klinger, who will be the chairman of the Banking Committee and the Government Operations Committee, will have to make decisions about those things, and they should do what they think is ethically and technically correct for the Congress to do. I don't think there should be any sense of either going off on witch hunts, nor should there be any sense of covering anything up. They ought to do the right thing, and as they see it, and they're both honorable men with, I think, impeccable reputations. I think the deeper question is, we have a contract with America. We had 330 candidates sign the contract. We put it in TV Guide as a full-page ad. We told the American people to tear it out, put it on the refrigerator door, and then if we got to be a majority, tune in on January 4th on C-SPAN and watch us keep our word. And the fact is, Bernie, that our first obligation as a party in the House is going to be to actually honor the contract. If the American people have accepted it, and your numbers indicate they will have, then we have an obligation to keep our word. That in itself will be a revolutionary experience for the country to watch a party actually do in detail what it said it would do before the election.
A lot of people are wondering, since you will be the next Speaker of the House of Representatives, if all indications hold up, are you going to moderate your rhetoric in the interest of bipartisanship?
Oh, I think, you know, that when you're a backbencher or you're the minority whip, you have a style that reflects one level of responsibility, and you know, if you become Speaker of the House and you are given the honor of serving the country in that position, and I'd be the first Georgian to do so in 103 years, you know, you really, I think, have an obligation to think through how do you best represent the House and how do you best represent serving the American people on behalf of your colleagues. And I think, you know, clearly Newt Gingrich, or frankly anybody else, would have to look at that as a very serious and solemn obligation. And I would certainly hope that I could grow into it, and I don't think that Newt Gingrich, Republican whip, is the same behavior pattern in terms of style and speeches and aggressiveness that you'd want to have in the Speaker of the House.
Was that a yes or a no?
I think it's a yes. I mean, maybe I'm too much of a history teacher, but I think it's a yes.
Okay, thank you, Newt Gingrich.
Thanks.
In suburban Atlanta. You're welcome. Judy.
Well, Bernie, while you've been talking to Newt Gingrich, CNN is coming up with some numbers that indicate that it is now very likely that the Republicans will pick up control of the Senate because they have picked up an additional Senate seat from the Democrats. Rick Santorum, we are calling him the winner, defeating the incumbent Democratic senator in Pennsylvania, Harris Wofford.
Only the second incumbent senator to go down to defeat Harris Wofford. This is a very symbolic victory because Wofford's victory in a special election in 1991 presaged Clinton's election, and now Wofford appears to be losing his seat in the Senate.
In Connecticut, CNN is declaring the winner of the gubernatorial race, Republican John Rowland of Waterbury, a former member of the U.S. Congress.
This was a four-way race to succeed Lowell Weicker, who governed Connecticut as an independent. Rowland was a controversial candidate who had some personal difficulties. He appears to have come through.
No winner yet in the state of New York, but a lot of eyes are on this one, the New York governor's race. Mario Cuomo, the incumbent, of course, being challenged by George Pataki, and maybe we're going to see some numbers, and maybe we're not. Yes, we are. Here they come. 48% for Mr. Pataki, 45% for the incumbent, and Tom Golisano, the independent, who was endorsed by Ross Perot, 4%.
This would be a very bitter defeat for Mario Cuomo, who is seeking his 4th term, and it's a bit of a letdown, I think, for if Pataki does win for the mayor of New York City. He's a Republican, Rudy Giuliani. He's going to, if Pataki wins, he'll have a Republican in Albany, but it's a Republican he didn't endorse and whom he does not get along with. We're going to see warfare in the New York Republican Party.
Bush won in Texas tonight. This is how it looks for the other Bush. In Florida's gubernatorial race, with 75% of the precincts in, incumbent Democrat Lawton Chiles holding on with 51% to Jeb Bush's 49%.
If Jeb Bush loses this race, and it's very, very close right now, a lot of people will say he just went too far with an attack ad accusing Chiles of failing to sign a death warrant for a convicted murderer. But Chiles fired right back at him with an aggressive ad saying that it was beyond his control, and a lot of people criticized the Bush ad as unfair.
We're still counting votes in the state just north of Florida. In Georgia, the incumbent Democrat Zell Miller holding on, Bill Schneider.
And he has Bill Clinton around his neck. He was an early supporter of Bill Clinton. The Milner
Figuratively
ads,
speaking.
the Milner ads featured that his connection with Clinton very prominently.
All right.
I'm still thinking about what Newt Gingrich said, a different tone. We can talk about that later on.
Oh, yes.
Right now we have to pause, and we'll come back. There's still a lot more. We're not going anywhere. We hope that you won't.
Finally got an answer to your question.
CNN's Campaign USA 94 is brought to you by Chrysler.
Flashing the thumbs up, the smile of victory. He will be the next governor of Texas, his home state. He's unseated the Democratic incumbent Ann Richards. His dad, former President George Herbert Walker Bush, was described by son Jeb as being a nervous wreck last night. We told you that the race in Florida showed incumbent Democrat Lawton Chiles ahead, so the former president apparently can conclude at least one of his 2 competing sons is a winner tonight. Tony Clark, in contrast, is at the headquarters of Ann Richards, also in Austin. Tony?
Bernie, the mood here, I think, is now a realization that it is all over. The crowd has been taking what joy there is in some other Democratic down-ballot Democrat victories tonight. But I think, if anything, there has been surprise at the margin. We've been saying all along this race was going to be a race that was too close to call. The margin was about 10%. Everyone waited for it to close, and it didn't. I'm Tony Clark, CNN, reporting live from the Richards headquarters. Back to the national desk.
Now the next governor of Texas, George W. Bush.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. What Texans can dream, Texans can do. This victory tonight is a great honor. The vote carries with it an awesome responsibility. Texas is ready for a new generation of leadership, and I will provide that.
To the state of California, and to, I believe we're going to the headquarters of Pete Wilson, where we just a few moments ago, even though the polls closed there about 15 minutes ago, we have already declared Pete Wilson the winner in the governor's race in the state of California. He was being challenged by Democrat Kathleen Brown, the sister of the former governor, or the daughter of the former governor. And now Pat Etheridge is at Pete Wilson's headquarters. And Pat, tell us what the mood is there.
Well, the folks here say no surprises. And joining us here at Pete Wilson headquarters is the governor's campaign manager, George Gorton. George, thanks for being with you tonight. CNN has just called the race for Governor Pete Wilson. Your reaction?
Well, it's a huge win for Pete. It's probably the biggest comeback in California history. We're down 23 points. We come up to win by 10 points. Probably the only person in history to beat a brother-sister act. We're just very, very happy.
Well, what a difference a year makes. As you said, a year ago when Kathleen Brown came out of the gate, she had more than a 20-point lead. How did you turn this thing around?
Well, you know, we concentrated on 3 issues that were really important to California: jobs, immigration, and crime. And Pete Wilson has a great record on those three issues, and we were able to contrast his record with Kathleen Brown's rhetoric, so we're in great shape.
Well, it sounded in the final days of the campaign as if Governor Wilson was campaigning more against President Clinton than he was Kathleen Brown. What are his plans for 1996?
Well, President Clinton made the big mistake to come to California and tell Californians what to do. We soundly rejected the president, and Pete told him so. But Pete is going to be a great governor, and that's what we expect him to be, in spite of what we expect to be a large number of people asking him to do something else.
George Gordon, campaign manager for Pete Wilson, thank you very much for being with us tonight, and we'll be standing by for the victory speech. For now, I'm Pat Etheridge reporting live in Los Angeles.